views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer.
Hello, welcome to Spirit Fire Radio. My name is Steve Kramer, and it's delightful to be with you and delightful to be with my co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. I'm really looking forward to this month on Goodwill.
Me too. What a great subject, Goodwill. The month of June, we're going to be talking about Goodwill. Goodwill, I think of friendly, helpful, cooperative, and being friendly and cooperative, almost assisting without expectation of something in return or of personal gain. Dorothy, are there any words or anything that comes to mind straight away when you think of Goodwill?
Well, I think there is that aspect of benevolence, right? A positive regard, consideration for others. But to me, what really comes to mind, Steve, and the reason why we're doing this in June is that it's in June that we have what's called, esoterically, the Festival of Goodwill. And it's also called the Festival of Humanity. It's the focus on how it is that we all live in an interdependent, cooperative way with each other. How it is that we live in loving relationship, loving in the best sense relationship with others.
And for listeners who might not know esoterically about these festivals, they're rather fascinating. At the beginning of the astrological new year, which would be Aries being the first sign, on each full moon there is a different festival, and it's the festival of Easter, then the festival of Wesak, and then the festival of Goodwill, which is also called the Festival of Humanity. And each one of those plays a very specific role in terms of bringing the spiritual vibration of the now, of bringing that energy down to the earth, down to humanity, so we can work with it and we can use it. Just last month was Wesak, which is, there's quite a bit written about Wesak if you're interested. It is, interestingly enough, that festival is a celebration worldwide of Buddhists. I find it interesting that it's the Buddha was said to have been born, to have been enlightened, and to have passed on the full moon of May of Taurus. I find that very interesting, and in that is a very particular festival that leads to the Festival of Goodwill, and that spiritual energy is generated, and that in the first two, and then it is disseminated. It is laid out for humanity. It is actually there for us to invoke. And so we use that energy. It's almost like a spiritual reset button that's annually pushed, is how I see it. It's like your windshield wipers are cleared and you can see the world through your spiritual eyes, and hopefully they won't get too mucked up in the next year to come. But in a sense, it's as if our guides are there for us, and they have presented very potent spiritual energy that humanity has at its service. And it's a very good time this month to talk about ways in which we can generate goodwill, ways in which we use goodwill, because at this time, vibrationally and energetically and esoterically, there's much available to us. How does that?
That's right. And one of the things that's interesting in thinking about goodwill is that from a spiritual perspective, the assumption is that goodwill is a basic human trait, a basic human attribute. That is, all of us have the capacity for goodwill, but some of us display it more readily. But we can always, by exhibiting goodwill ourselves, we can evoke goodwill from others. Not always. I mean, we can't control what somebody else is going to do or think. But if we want goodwill in the world, the best place to start is with ourselves and how we behave towards others.
And I find it interesting that it is the month of Gemini, which is the month of the twins. And there's an esoteric keynote that I find so interesting for this month of June for Gemini, which says, I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. I love that. I see it as the self, and it could be seen in many ways. The self and the other self could be referring to the personality and the soul, to aspects of ourselves that may be self-serving or maybe getting us in a little bit of trouble. And the soul being more group-oriented, striving to the other. So it is, in a sense, saying, I see my other self. I see ways in which sometimes I limit myself. And in the waning of that self, I grow. I also think that it is about recognizing yourself in others, that we are all different, but we're the same in the way of twins. They are separate individuals, but yet they are the same, have much in common.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting way to put it. Mm-hmm.
If I can go on, I also find that Gemini is. It's very interesting that Gemini rules on the anatomy. It rules the shoulders and arms and hands, and the shoulders, arms, and hands esoterically represent service. So humanity is, as you said, it comes natural to us. Goodwill is inherent in us, and service is inherent in us. And I think we can all feel into that in ways that we really feel our truth when we are helping others, and we see humanity rising up when another is in need. And you think of the shoulder as, can I shoulder a situation, or I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. I can shoulder something. And we think of the elbows as like saying, come on, man, like you're kind of jabbing somebody else. Wake up, pay attention, or do you know what I mean? Where you'd like to have somebody, you sort of nudge someone with your elbow. You got it. You know what I mean? In trying to find common ground and a common understanding. And you think of the hands as helping hands and shaping and molding a future. So Gemini is a very important symbolic aspect, I find, of a very good figure there in goodwill. I think we'll come back to notions of that, of the self and the other being one quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. I also am thinking, as you were talking, Steve, I was remembering years ago I had the opportunity to meet Peace Pilgrim, who was a woman who walked back and forth across the United States for peace. And I heard her speak about violence, and she said that her experience was that if you met violence with goodwill, with that compassionate and loving energy, that was the way that you could dissipate or turn it. And in her life, she had been challenged 3 times where she was in a situation that was physically dangerous for her, and she could have tried to deal with it violently, or in anger, but she didn't. And she said once she had been through it 3 times, it never happened again in all the years that she was walking across the country. And I thought that was so interesting. And I had my own experience actually shortly after hearing her speak, where I was in a situation where a friend of mine had a partner who could be very violent, and he had been dangerous towards their child, and in fact wasn't supposed to be with the child. And I was at their home with the child, and he came, and he was very angry, and he wanted to take the child. And I just remember standing there and looking at him and trying to feel myself into what she'd been talking about. And he looked as though he was going to beat me up. I mean, he was just absolutely enraged. And I just looked at him and I said, "You will not touch me." And he just froze for a moment, and then he turned and ran out of the house. And I'm not saying that you can always, successfully deal with violence in that way, but it was a very striking moment where I felt that, for me, it's like being in a very, like when you take a camera and you get something in very clear focus. There was like this very clear silence that resounds, that kind of sense of, absolute clarity, absolute centeredness,
right.
Absolute. I wasn't angry with him. I felt compassion for him, but I was absolutely certain that he should not act in a way that was violent. It would be to his detriment, really.
Right. And that brings forward the will aspect of goodwill, which I know this month we'll talk quite a bit about. The will to good but the difference between the will to good and goodwill. It's a very interesting subject, but there's will there, right? I mean, there's will involved in that. And as I was just done talking about shoulders and elbows and hands, I could really see your shoulders getting quite wide and elbows, like a blocker. Yes, and hands shaping the situation. Mm-hmm. Very good, very interesting. There's from the Blue Books, which is quite a collection of esoteric teachings, and from a Tibetan Lama called Dwa Kul. He says that this is in a little bit of distinction from what you were just saying, that the work is to be done steadily and quietly with no infringement to harmony. And actually, in a sense, that the goodwill that you projected did not allowed for harmony to not be infringed upon, right? Mm-hmm. But that the work is done steadily and quietly. Otherwise, resistance arises, and you're right back where you started. So goodwill does have quite a bit to do with not creating more drama, right? If there's a situation, for instance, the woman you were talking about that confronted violence, that if the situation is happening, you don't want to make more drama from the drama. That it's really goodwill is done steadily. It is done centered with a center, and I think quietly, meaning with reverence for the action. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, we're at a break already. When we come back, I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Are you ready to thread your life with intuition? Intuit Apparel can help you do just that. This is not just about a piece of clothing. This is about a movement, an awakening, and staying centered in life. Your life. Intuitive and host of the radio show Get Into It, Lynn Brown, was given this image with the intention of a clothing line designed to represent the essence of life itself. Visit intuitapparel.com now and wear your intuition with pride.
Do you feel that there's a bigger, better life for you? Is there anything holding you back from living the life you were meant to live? If you'd like to find your life's true purpose and calling, join the world's foremost authority on primal spirituality, David Carshare, in Becoming a Sun Radio, emotional and spiritual intelligence for a happy, fulfilling life. Tune in once a month to Becoming a Sun Radio with David Carshare on The Dr. Pat Show and Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit davidcarshare.com today.
Brand consultant Jen Morgan is here with Radically Distinct Radio to help you take control of your future and maximize your brand's power to produce results. Whether you're an individual trying to reinvent yourself and launch a new venture, or you're an executive trying to reposition your company to modernize your sales and marketing programs, Jen Morgan and the RAD Method empower you to play to your strengths and show up in the world as your most powerful brand. To learn more, go to jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's Morgan.com, or call 206-972-5366.
Chris Stanis is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
Curious about the meaning of life? Do you want to deepen your spiritual practice? The School for Esoteric Studies offers online training to spiritual seekers from all paths of life and individual coaching. Our courses synthesize Eastern and Western spiritual traditions based on meditation, study, and service applied to everyday life. The school also organizes group meditations each year to benefit humanity. Whether you're just beginning to reflect on the spiritual side of your life or are a more experienced spiritual seeker, the school warmly welcomes you to join our group. To learn more about our courses and services, please visit esotericstudies.net. That's esotericstudies.net.
Welcome back. Just before the break, we started our month off talking about Goodwill for the entire month of June. We are going to explore Goodwill. So why is Goodwill important? Why is this something we would cover? And why is it important in your life? I would say that it will bring peace back to Earth. Dorothy, I always have had this idea, and I think I'm not alone, that you just imagine that if for one day alone, every person on this earth would act with kindness and in nonviolence toward everyone they meet, we would actually have world peace in an instant. I just find that fascinating that we can't. I mean, I know I've been called quite often that I am a bit of a what's the word? I tend to see things in the highest light and that aren't always even the least bit doable. But I do imagine it, and I think, goodness, can't we just spread the word and make a day where we just all act from a place of peace and watch what the world would look like? But one of the things that you're getting at, Steve, and we're going to talk about this in the month when we talk about harmlessness, is we actually don't have any shared experience of there not being harm, of the absence of harm. We may individually experience that some, but as a society, as a group, harm permeates what happens. And so if you think about, it kind of it's like acid that's eating away at stuff. And then what we want to do is to inject goodwill to dissipate, to dilute, and then ultimately dissipate that harm. And I think one of the things that's important is, because we can think of goodwill with words like kindness and consideration, but goodwill also has an action component to it. It involves specific action to achieve what in the esoteric terms is called right human relations. In other words, exactly the kind of scenario that you described, where we live together in a manner that is inclusive and supportive and respectful. Yeah, we talked quite a bit about that 2 shows ago, right? Where you so beautifully summarized the United Nations Bill of Rights, and you realize if we could just live in a way that would support that and act in a way that would move to achieve that in small ways and big ways, we'd be on the right track. There was a quote as well from the Tibetan, who again is Tibetan Lama who has put into English through a writer named Alice A. Bailey. This is a beautiful quote from them that says, "Goodwill is man's first attempt to express universal love." Universal love is those are my words. I think it was said, the love of God. "Its results on earth will be peace. It is so simple and practical that people fail to appreciate its potency or its scientific and dynamic effect. One person sincerely practicing goodwill in their family can completely change its attitudes. Goodwill really practiced among groups in any nation can revolutionize the world." And now if that isn't hopeful right there, that we fail to appreciate its potency, right? And not only that, its scientific and dynamic effect, that, as we act in a way that will generate and promote goodwill, it becomes a ripple effect that I would say that it almost we recognize within ourselves that quality that is inherent, and it brings it forward.
Well, one of the ways that it brings it forward, Steve, is a really critical dynamic, and that is goodwill reveals the cleavages that exist, the separations that exist. Because remember, separation is an illusion. We are not separate from each other. And it is when we see through the lens of goodwill that we begin to recognize what those separations are so that we can take action. Because until we notice, we can't take action.
Right. Yeah,
so
I think
it involves a shift in perspective.
Yeah, and a vision of sort of inclusiveness. I think of goodwill as reaching out and bringing everyone in. As soon as we engage in goodwill, we start to see where it's needed, and we start to see the differences. It seems to me a sort of, it's in our nature, human beings, to bridge and to heal these cleavages. It gets us in trouble sometimes, I think, when we, in personal situations where we want to please, or we know somebody needs something and we just want to be a bridge. We want to help them and give them what they need. And sometimes we can get into a little bit of trouble where, sometimes it's not our business, or somebody's got to do some growing on their own. But I think it is in our nature as human beings to bridge when we see the other and we've got the capacity to help, or we've got the capacity to make a change for the better. It feels like the right movement to do so, or to create a bridge so that we can find common ground or a solution.
Well, I think we have the potential for that, but I don't think everybody is in that space all the time. Yeah, and we need to be realistic about that. And also, Steve, my experience is that what we conceive of as goodwill evolves as we grow. You gave a great example the other day when we were talking about your own awareness, your own shift in awareness of, I think, from when you were working at the bar.
Yeah, for sure. I agree that our sense of goodwill will constantly grow and evolve, and it can sometimes just astound you. I was young in my 20s, 25 years actually, in June, that friends and myself opened a bar in New York City right on Christopher Street. We were the first gay bar to have a glass window. So that meant that we were really, we were cutting edge. And can you imagine 25 years ago that was an issue, that the gay community could see the world and the world could see them as a gay community? And amazing to me that. And so my intention going into that was really to generate goodwill, was to find a place where people could come together to preserve our history. There's so much history in the West Village and on Christopher Street, and really wanted to create a space that everybody felt welcome, that they could feel met and comfortable and safe and share tough times in the early 90s for the gays, and just have a shoulder to lean on. And that, in my eyes, was goodwill. And then as I did this for nearly 20 years, I started seeing people wither away from alcohol. And, I don't drink, and yet I was selling booze. I was a pusher. I was basically a drug dealer. And after a while, I started seeing the effects of addiction and the effects of alcohol, and I really couldn't do it anymore. And I realized that it was time for me to go, and I wanted to move on. The gay family had sort of moved on to the human family, and I realized, well, I'm moving on to the human family too, and I really want to create a space where people feel comfortable and the same thing. So here I'm the president of Spirit Fire, which owns a retreat center, which has people come together and they feel met, they feel comfortable, they feel safe, and they feel that it's a space that they can find people, co-creators of like mind. And hopefully we will see, the human family evolve in the same way that the gay family evolved from the 90s to now. But so your notion of goodwill changes. I could look back at that and say, oh, man, alcohol was terrible. Why did I do that? And instead I realized that I provided such a wonderful service, and from my heart, it all came from my heart, and goodness was in my heart as it is today. But it changed. I saw that there were places I could move to and express goodwill on an even larger scale. So thanks for giving me the chance to walk down memory lane.
Well, I think that's a beautiful example, and I think it's important to underscore the not looking back and being hard on yourself, because
right.
I mean, one of the concepts that's important to me is that each day I make the best decision that I can at the place that I am, and next year I might see other options. Right. I might choose differently. That doesn't mean I did something wrong now. I did it in the best way that I could. And I think another thing that you didn't talk about this explicitly, Steve, but I think is really important about goodwill and is implicit in what you were describing, is that we don't just take from other people, we give. And we participate in the flow of energy. Energy has to flow. If it's dammed up, then there are problems. And one of the difficulties that we create as humanity is we take. You see that in our relation to the physical world, and we don't give back.
Yeah, goodwill is inclusive, right? I mean, it is really about the greater whole. Hey, we're at a break time, Dorothy. We'll continue this conversation after these messages.
What is a brilliant culture, and how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you align your culture with your business strategy for exceptional results. Looking for a culture that drives organizational excellence? Listen to Cultural Brilliance Radio, the second and fourth Friday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit culturalbrilliance.com.
Thrive is what we experience when our mind, body, and soul operate as one. When we thrive, we excel on all levels. Thrive is the mindset that matters. It is essential to our being. Have you ever found yourself looking for the instruction manual on how to thrive? You'll find everything you need to help you feel strong, powerful, and peaceful in your own body. So don't waste any more time. Visit thrivebyjen.com today.
Hi, I'm Steve Kramer of Spirit Fire Radio, and I believe that meditation changes everything. It leads us in the direction of greater well-being, and that's a fact. I struggled with meditation for years. I understood the principles, but I found it hard to incorporate them into my everyday life. Spirit Fire's meditation practice changed that. It's called the Practice of Living Awareness, and it's taught in 14 steps. These are 14 tools that I can use in any moment, on and off the cushion. Steps like smile, flow, and ground of being support my clarity of mind while I'm navigating the ups and downs of modern life. That's why it's called the Practice of Living Awareness. If you'd like to add meditation to your daily experience, the Practice of Living Awareness is free, online, and it's suited for any level of practitioner. Visit spiritfire.com for more information. And be sure to check out Spirit Fire's meditation retreats in Western Massachusetts. It's all there at spiritfire.com.
Get ready to experience Truth Talk Radio with host Deb Acker. Tune in to Truth Talk Radio each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com to illuminate the truth in your daily life as you experience life, love, and abundance from a whole new perspective. This hit show will leave you feeling lighter and bring you into a place of infinite possibilities every day in every way. Visit TruthTalkRadioshow.com for upcoming transformative topics and guests. Tune in to the hit show Mouthing Off with Chef Rossi. Chef Rossi mouths off about different subjects in pursuit of breaking down walls and opening up your minds. She and Dr. Pat banter back and forth, taking from the headlines of the day on subjects that reach beyond what goes on in the world into your hearts. And go to theragingskillet.com to find out more and let Chef Rossi know what's on your mind.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio and our first show of the month on Goodwill. It's off to a good start. I love these topics, and I look forward to all that will unfold and the goodwill that we will generate by bringing this information forward. Before the break, you were saying basically, Dorothy, that, part of the tale I was telling was about giving back. And it made me think of the torus. It's a step within our meditation practice, which is toroidal flow, introducing this idea of the torus, which I have a great definition in front of me. I did not come up with this, but it says it so well, that a torus is a self-organizing system that comes together at a single point of unity and expands its energy outward in every direction all around itself until it returns back to the space in the center where it started, and it will continue to do so. So if you've ever seen the image of a torus, it looks a bit like a donut. And we are toruses. The magnetic field of the earth is a torus. If you slice an apple in half, it grows like a torus. Tornadoes have a toroidal flow. Atoms, galaxies, you think of a black hole and everything that comes out of a black hole, that's that singular point of origin. But the heart is a torus. You think of the fact that our blood goes out to every part of our body and comes back to that same central point. But the magnetic field of our heart has been proven to be toroidal. If you dissect a heart, it actually unravels in a spiral that forms a perfect torus. So it just makes me think of goodwill is about putting something out and then something comes back. It is about consciousness does that through us. We have an intention. We put that intention out there. We collect all the data from it, and we bring that back. And there's a new now of all the experience and all that we collected, the data from the new now that intention created. So I only bring that up because goodwill is toroidal in nature, in that what we put out creates a new now, and it comes back to us so that we can generate more, that it is a self-organizing and self-supporting system. So I sort of love that idea of seeing goodwill as similar, very heart-centered, in that they are the same kind of geometric system. Pretty good. Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's not, to me, it's from how you're describing it, it's not only that it is self-supporting, but it is, it is, I'm not sure what the word is, it's self-generative. It continues to grow, right?
Absolutely. And it's got the capacity, toruses have the capacity to give and receive from other toroidal structures. In fact, they use them very efficiently. We see that in nature. And so it just shows that when you've got lots of groups that are acting from a place of goodwill, that they actually feed each other and themselves. And there's so much about goodwill that is about, really, we've just got to practice it. We've got to put it in place, and then we've got to watch it unfold and keep moving forward with it steadily and calmly and gently and quietly. Yeah.
Well, I wonder, I'd have to give it some more thought, but that's a very interesting image for business.
Yes.
In terms of how business evolves, how businesses can work together, in contrast to a more cutthroat, competitive image. Because one of the things that I was struck by, Steve, when I was doing research for this month was I kept stumbling over Goodwill in the commercial world.
Yes.
It's very difficult to actually get to the more spiritual aspects. And so you have this concept of goodwill as an asset. In fact, some businesses have goodwill listed literally on their balance sheets, but it is intangible, just the way spiritual goodwill is. And I think they both depend on consideration for others. They both have to do with how we relate to others.
Yes. And how we give back. And you're right. And I've seen some of that as well. And I don't know it well enough either. Perhaps we'll both do a little bit of research. But it does seem to be like a quantifiable, in some ways, aspect of the goodwill that businesses have generated that gives them more worth, right?
Yes. It's a way of describing the worth that is generated because of their reputation,
right?
Because of how they're regarded. But I think one of the differences might be in the scope. That the goodwill of a business is specific to its particular customer base or the industry segment in which it's operating, whereas spiritual goodwill, I think of as being more expansive and more inclusive in terms of the circle the circle of beings that is involved.
Right. But if you think of if we got to the place in this world where every business was operating from a place of goodwill, I mean, I know that it doesn't translate directly, but listen, words have energy, and that energy is there of what they've accumulated through their positive actions and that business being worthwhile and generating goodwill. If you think of that, these systems actually all feed off of each other. I mean, it seems like a good world. It makes me think of the Four Freedoms by FDR, where he says, like all of our needs are met. It's the four: freedom of speech and expression, freedom to worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. And I think freedom from want, we need to have systems that are able to work together on every level, spiritual systems along with economical systems and political systems, that we see and we utilize goodwill in a way where it becomes, developed and systematized.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, one of the areas in which I've done some work in my business is on profiting by giving back. And that in fact you do generate and you can expand your business from that perspective of goodwill, of consciously giving back. And in fact, if anyone is interested, I have a white paper on that at servicegrowth.com is my corporate website. But that whole idea that it's not a zero-sum game. And that when you are an organization, whether you're a nonprofit or you're a for-profit, that you are based in a community, whether it's a very specific community or a global community, and you benefit from that community, right? You get resources from that community, you get staff from that community, you get volunteers from that community. And if you keep the energy flowing, if you think about your own way of doing business from the perspective of the common good, what is it that the community needs? How can the business contribute to what the community needs? then you have that flow of goodwill.
And I mean, that really is the keynote of Goodwill Industries. We think of Goodwill Industries. That was to create opportunities. It was to generate goodwill for families. And I think if everybody has got it within them, that potential, no matter, in their workplace or in their daily lives to work to generate goodwill, on some level or another. I know people are often here at the retreat center. They come here and they when they leave, they sort of ask, how am I going to go back in the world? Because Tim and I, we make it our point to really make sure that we're coming from the heart, that we are a bridge in a way between the world they just came from and the world they're moving into, meaning 4 or 5 days of immersion into, a spiritual training or a meditation or some kind of healing work. And how do we make that transition happen so that they can come in and get in this space, but then also bring that back into the world as well? Mm-hmm. I think I just changed the subject a little bit off of what you were just saying. Somehow I meandered.
Well, but let me kind of bring it back a bit into, because in my consulting practice, one of the principles that I've always lived by was that I was continually working myself out of a job. That is, that my responsibility was to help whatever organization or government I was working with to be able to do for itself the things that I was doing for it. So that was my giving of goodwill. And I had colleagues who were appalled by my approach because they'd say, well, you're going to lose work, right? You've got to keep your secrets, close. You've got to make yourself indispensable. But my experience was that if I gave in that way, if I was really working for the common good, not just for my bottom line, that in fact the possibilities expanded. And so again, it's that thing of recognizing it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a limited pie. You grow the pie. You grow the opportunities for everyone.
And those and more opportunities will appear because there are that many more businesses that need just that service. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds like me. I used to tell people at the bar, don't drink so much. And I'd hear myself thinking, what are you doing? Tell people not to drink. That's what you're selling. Anyway, we're going to go to a break and talk more about goodwill. The conversation will continue just after these messages.
Gifted intuitive healer and spiritual teacher Sarah Luce brings her unique style to the hit show Small Steps, Big Breakthrough Radio on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in each month as Sarah turns reality on end and shows us how to experience expansive results with simple yet powerful steps. Expect an enlightening bend on what you currently believe is possible. For show details and upcoming topics, visit SarahLuce.com. That's SarahLoos.com.
Awareness is universal. Establishing a living awareness through meditation brings peaceful, healthy, and creative well-being into your everyday life. The practice of living awareness, Spirit Fire's own meditation practice, is built on this belief and is designed for every level of practitioner. Each year, Spirit Fire hosts living awareness meditation retreats that allow you to explore the practice in depth at our retreat center in beautiful Western Massachusetts. Introduce yourself to meditation and the practice at the Foundation's retreat. Attend, in silence, a silent meditation retreat focused on mindfulness, presence, and nature, or be engaged with the meditation sittings themselves at the Deepening Retreat. Start adding to your awareness and attend a meditation retreat designed to cultivate consciousness in your everyday life. For details on attending a Living Awareness meditation retreat, visit upcoming events at www.spiritfire.com.
Are you feeling stagnant or blocked in your love life, career, health, or finances? Experiencing difficulty focusing or setting and achieving goals? Tune in to Spiritual Diagnostics Radio with psychic visionary healers Carol Dorian and Justice Welling. Discover the cause and effect of unwanted patterns in life. Tune in every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit spiritualdeed.com.
Be you plus live your purpose equals joy. That's the motto of Unstuck Joy with Vicki Todd. Vicki believes you were born with gifts that are meant to make the world brighter. Each show will feature an art visioning journal prompt to help you create your way to soul clarity. If you're ready to get unstuck and create more joy, this show is for you. Tune in every month on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit VickiWorldArt.com.
Tune in to The Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. Dorothy and I are having a wonderful conversation about Goodwill. What is Goodwill? How do we generate it? Why is it important? And this is the last segment, so great to leave you with some ideas of how you might experiment with Goodwill, how you might generate that. But I want to say that you don't always see the results straight away. You have to plant the seed. Planting the seed of goodwill can be a simple kindness. It can be adjusting your attitude so that it is one that you will be noticing ways in which your actions affect everyone around you. And if they have to be aligned to a way that it is for their greater good, for the goodness, the truth, then you do so. So those are small seeds that sometimes take some time to see results. But in the end, we have to train ourselves to be responsive, and I would say responsive and receptive to spiritual will. And that is live by the fact that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that, as we were talking about the Festival of Goodwill, we have guides. You know, we are guided. We can invoke that spiritual presence and that higher sense of ourselves, and then we can evoke that. I'm certain in further shows we'll talk about the will to good, which is really, I find, invocational, and then goodwill, which is evocational, which is about bringing that out into the community. And we then are celebrating that fact that we are spiritual beings and we are doing something with that. So I would say to listeners, my own humble advice, 3 things you can do is meditate. Meditate every day. If you could just quiet your mind, if it's just for 10 minutes, sometimes our thoughts or even thought patterns that we repeat again and again, it allows us to observe our thought patterns and see if they are conducive to generating goodwill, and also making space, creating space within our mind and creating an alignment, learning to focus our mind so that we have access to these invocations, really learning to develop discipline within the mind. That's a whole process, but simply by starting just 10 minutes every day. And I would say also, second, spend time in nature, just for vitality, for inspiration, for reverence that the earth, this terrarium, is your stage. And listen, the wind is like your breath, the rivers you've got as a bloodstream within you, lightning is like your impulses. I just saw foxes yesterday. They can teach you stealth. The minerals are in your blood and bones. So there's so much to be respectful and to have reverence for with time in the earth. It's just rejuvenating, and it generates goodwill and positivity through gratitude. You know, do you feel gratitude every day? Do you wake up and feel grateful? And if not, just start making a list every morning of things that will make you that you are grateful for, and train your brain to notice abundance, to take stock of it. And you'll start feeling good. And I would say generating some goodwill. What do you think,
Well,
Dorothy?
Steve, I think those are wonderful ways to prepare yourself to to nurture the predisposition of goodwill. The challenge that I would put out, though, is oftentimes we do that personally, but when we're out in the world, we don't necessarily act on that, and that to me is the challenge. Is how are we doing it in the world every day as we're confronted by other people with other agendas, another type of focus, all of that. So I would add to that list something that you can do every day, and I would challenge people to try it for a month, and that is to notice what people around you are doing for you that has a positive influence on your life, and find at least one time each day to be able to say to somebody, you have just made my day by doing whatever it is. So that's the gratitude acted out in the community.
Nice. Yes, I appreciate that addendum. But if you have meditated every morning and you've been in nature, you'll do that so well.
Not necessarily.
You're right. It's set up. Right. It lays the groundwork.
It lays the groundwork. It lays the potential. But you can still get thrown off course, right, by the person that comes up to you and says that horrible joke, and you haven't rehearsed and you haven't thought about it. So I think it is important to also be practicing in the everyday world. One of the practices that we notice that's actually become kind of institutionalized is random acts of kindness.
Yeah.
People being kind, noticing when somebody else needs something, and being kind to them, even though they don't know them. They don't have any particular relationship to them.
Yes, very kind. And I think when somebody tells you that terrible joke, you can actually say, you just made my day, because I've been practicing random acts of kindness, and I've been noticing with gratitude people, you've been doing all of these things, and you can actually say, you made my day because I'm going to talk to you about this joke. And the harm that it actually does. Let's go have a coffee. Yes. Definitely, we will be talking this month about that action component, and I look forward to talking about examples of goodwill, because I find that we do that quite a bit on Spirit Fire Radio, and Dorothy, we get in these really great discussions of instances. I think people love to hear instances, so I look forward to us bringing forward some real life examples of goodwill and change that has been generated as a result. So many people think the world's just it's on the way out, but there's so many wonderful things happening as a result of us, as you say, noticing the cleavages and seeing the gaps. And there's so many opportunities, and there will be in this upcoming year and next year and many years to come for us to act in ways that will generate goodwill. It seems the world is just offering us so many options to build bridges. We need to build so many. We're going to be busy little builders.
I agree.
Well, it's been a wonderful show, Dorothy. Any final words about goodwill before we go, or anything you'd like to mention?
Well, I think that I guess the one thing that I would say is, whereas in the commercial world, goodwill is given a number and it's put on a balance sheet so that it's visible, in everyday practice, it is, I think, undervalued. You gave a quote earlier about this, Steve. People don't recognize necessarily the power, the cumulative power of daily goodwill. And
Yes.
You can't always see the results this week or next week or maybe even in your lifetime, but they will come.
Yes. Yes. And it will revolutionize the world, as it said. Beautiful. Well, may it be so, Dorothy. I hope this week coming offers us plenty of opportunities to practice random acts of kindness. So listeners, we're going to spend the entire month of June on Goodwill and then July on harmlessness. I'm really looking forward to that, Dorothy. You are quite the expert when it comes to harmlessness. Beautiful. So lots going on this summer. Yes.
Yep, and I'd like to just slip in, Steve, the fact that at the School for Esoteric Studies website, esotericstudies.net, we have a section called Festival Talks, and we have talks for the Festival of Goodwill, for the Festival of Wesak, and the Festival of Easter. So please take a look at our website.
Yes, beautifully written, all of those. I have read them. They're great. And spiritfire.com, one push for us. If you want to come meditate and spend time in nature and be grateful, we've got lots of meditation retreats this summer. One I'm leading in a few weeks. So check it out, spiritfire.com under retreats. All right, Dorothy, it's been the utmost pleasure, and I look forward to next week.
Me too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.